You're listening to Masters Decoded podcast series. I'm your host and the chief decoder, Anis Merchant. Through this podcast, I bring in guests who are successful in a different walk of life to decode and map out their careers and journeys with the hope that we gain all our learnings. The world around us is changing exponentially, and how the impact of artificial intelligence, technology, and other socioeconomic factors have either influenced or enhanced my guests' careers. Today's guest on my podcast is Ashish Braganza, someone whom I have personally known for the last 15 years. In fact, I started working with Ashish at his first job, which was at Comcast. It is a pleasure to see Ashish's career evolve from Comcast to Lenovo to Oppenheimer, and now as an executive vice president at LPL Financial. Ashish had a humble start in his life. He was born and brought up in Pune, India. He decided to move to United States to complete his undergrad and then pursue his master's from Temple University in Philadelphia. Without much further ado, hi Ashish, thanks for taking time out and welcome to the Masters Decoded podcast series. I know it's fun times for all of us right now, and taking priority to do this on a Friday, I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Anis. It's great to actually that you're doing the Masters Decoded. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest. So, yeah,
Cool.
and it's interesting times right now.
Yep. And we'll talk more about those interesting times. Ashish, for the benefit of the listeners and my audience, today I know a little bit about you. I'm sure they don't know, but I know that your current role and what you're doing in the United States the journey didn't start there. It started from Pune, and you ended up in Philadelphia. How did that happen? And if you can share a little bit about that, that will really help.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, I've just it's going to be this year is going to be an interesting year for me. Just reflecting and looking back. I'm going to be 40 this year, by the way. So the big 40, and just looking back at the ride, it's been a phenomenal ride. It's just been a roller coaster, ups and downs, but just a phenomenal ride from just looking back from coming from Pune to Philadelphia to Raleigh, and I don't know where next, but Charlotte. But that said, it's just been a really good ride. So looking back at just reflect actually because of the big 40, just reflecting from a journey perspective. I grew up in India. At the time, it was the pre-liberalization, right? It was pre-1991, where the Indian economy wasn't open, and I still remember very vividly when I was in grade 4, we got our first rotary dial telephone, and I was so excited to actually call people up. So I grew up in a time in India which was the Soviet style social planning, which is the only choice you had was 2 of everything. And then coming into 1991 with the post-liberalization of the Indian economy, just opening up and the whole world being the floodgates were open. It was just a very things have changed a lot in India since then. But just growing up through that lens and seeing what these different times in my life, and then coming to the U.S. finally in Philadelphia, it's just been it's been a great journey, just a fantastic journey looking back.
So who made that decision for you, Ashish? Was it somebody in the family to land up in Philly, or was it your own decision?
Well, actually, a couple of things. I've thought about that question. Actually, I've pondered upon it as to how it's always good to reflect and look back. And I realized there were 2 pretty critical events in my life that happened, and that I would say economically the pre-liberalization and post-liberalization of the Indian economy. And I want to focus on that because I feel that kind of really molded who I was and how I perceived the world as a child and then as a teenager, right? So there were two things which I feel were very transformational to me as a child growing up in India, which, at the time, pre 1991, we didn't have access to a lot of information. So there was a lot of, you knew there was something out there bigger, but we didn't have access to information as readily as, say, it would be today, right? And back then, my dad's sister, she lived in Canada, but she signed us up for a subscription of the National Geographic magazine. And I remember as a child waiting every month, it would be one magazine a month, and I would wait for that National Geographic magazine to come in. And just the whole, it was, as a child, it was such an experience, because the National Geographic magazines, the colors, the pictures, the smell of the books, the texture, the glossy pages, and just the smell, and it was a full immersive experience. And one of the first National Geographic magazines we got was it was about the national parks in the U.S. was Yellowstone and Yosemite and things like that. And just the pictures were so beautiful, and I was hooked, right? So at that point in time, for me, entertainment was the National Geographic magazines, and I would wait for those magazines and read them like cover to cover, right? But that's where in terms of inspiration, that's where early on, that was the pre-liberalization kind of. I knew that there was something, I don't know what, but I knew I needed to see the world, and there was something beyond that. And National Geographic magazines actually opened my eyes to that. So I'm grateful for that subscription, actually, as a child. And then post-liberalization was, Star TV. I don't know if you remember, Star TV came to India, and it was all this content that just came in. And I remember very clearly one of the first movies that I saw was Wall Street. Money Never Sleeps. And at that time, I didn't know, and at that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I kind of had an idea, but I must have watched that movie. Although it was in the 90s, the movie came out in 87, but, we didn't have access to that content. But, with the markets opening up and a lot of, content coming in at that point in time, that movie, as a 13-year-old, I still remember, was a very impressionable age in my life. And, the characters of like Gordon Gekko and Bud Fox. And, I just knew, I want to do that. I didn't know what, I just knew that I wanted to be like something in New York and work in finance. And I probably may have watched that movie when I was a 13-year-old. And by the way, it was PG-13. It was a parental guidance 13, so it was age appropriate at the time.
I've seen that movie,
and I probably watched it. If I can, at least 8 to 9 times. I had like memorized lines and scripts. I was just blown away by that movie, and that was the other part too of the of being an impressionable mind at the early age. And then so I've had those two kind of, I've looked back, I've reflected on my life, and I feel that those were the two kind of defining moments. There are like some defining moments in your, and as when you're a kid, you kind of have these, hey, I think that looks pretty cool. Let's go do that kind of a deal. But that was my, my moment where I kind of felt that that's the type of lifestyle or kind of life that I would, I would want to be something in finance and something in your, I don't know what's going to happen, but it set the calculus for me. And, so those were the two events.
I know you a little bit. I think I know you for the last 15 years, and you've recited some stories in your good days in Philadelphia. And you've had some fun moments, and you had some interesting moments in Philly. Have those experiences, I don't want to keep it suspense. I'm sure there are many for you. But I remember the fun cop discussions which we used to have about your experience with cops in Philly. You you were Were those also you know helpful, or like kind of gave you a different experience from the National
Yeah, so I
Geographic magazine to?
yeah, so actually, interestingly, when I first came to Philadelphia, I'd applied to graduate school. I did my undergrad in India, and then I came for my graduate school, and I'd applied to a few universities across the U.S. and I got accepted into a few, but I chose Temple in Philadelphia. Of course, I'm grateful. Temple was a fantastic choice to make, and I'm grateful for the opportunity Temple has given me. It was pretty much they gave me a full scholarship and a free, and able to get a grade in it at no student debt, right? Because that's that's the other big thing today. I see a lot of students getting into debt, and I was able to graduate Temple with more money in my wallet than I kind of went to Temple with, and that was because of the internships and all of that I was able. But that said, when I first arrived in Philadelphia, I had no clue what I kind of had read about Philadelphia, but it's true. This is the time when you had like the dial-up internet, so you can only download all the glossy brochureware, and you think Philadelphia is, Temple's in North Philadelphia, and it was kind of a shock that coming from India, you think the United States and poverty and all of that, but 25% of Philadelphia, there is systemic poverty in the city, and I was just taken aback. Actually, I still remember that getting lost on my first visit to Temple. We arrived late in the night, and I was so excited to see the university, and we did get lost, and now it's called the Badlands of Philadelphia. But so I was depressed. I was like, I don't know where I've arrived at, but Philadelphia has been just a fantastic place to live. It's raw. It's also been, I can't like the Philadelphia, when you come to the city, yes, it is a rough city, and it has its grit to it. But once you live in there and you realize it's like, you got to peel back the layers, and then you actually in Philadelphia kind of expose yourself. And it was a great experience. Just, I got to meet so many just interesting people, get perspective in life. And I felt that in India I was very sheltered and, didn't understand things. And then in Philadelphia and it was an education. Living in Philadelphia itself was an education in kind of, rounding you out as a personality. And I've had just, graduate school, just really quickly, I had to live in a rectory at a church just off campus. Didn't have a lot of money, but it was an interesting, like just living in that church in a rectory. I had, and the parish priest was this old Irish Catholic parish priest, and he was just awesome. I mean, he was like heart of gold and welcomed me in, and allowed me to kind of stay in the church rectory. But I got to meet. It was the best experience culturally because I was completely immersed in Philadelphia. I got to meet, because of the church rectory and the kitchen conversations. Any table. I just got to meet a cross section of society, from like wealthy Philadelphians to cops, and to every part of the, to like homeless, and it was good. It gave me a good rounding of culture, and
Wow.
and that's why I have that perspective, right?
It's just interesting, when we experience such life moments, it shapes our future as well. And I do see some strands of it. And going back to that Wall Street movie, which you saw, did that make a natural choice in developing yourself in the analytics? Because after your postgraduate, you started your career in analytics. Was that the
I think it's never, yeah, it's never a clear path, right? So
Yep.
what I probably should add is that I have, as much as I've had success, I've also had failures. And for example, when I was in undergrad, I actually started undergrad in electrical engineering. because in India, my dad's a mechanical engineer, and back then in India, like now it's different, of course, but back then in India,
You have to be an
there
engineer.
were yeah, you have to be an engineer or a doctor, right? So and if your son or your daughter cannot make it, it's like there's something wrong with them, right? But
Yep.
naturally, I went for electrical engineering, did 2 years of electrical engineering, and I dropped out of engineering school because I couldn't do math. And it's ironic, right? It's like, okay, I couldn't do math, and I was like, and my dad had taken a loan against his retirement fund to pay for my engineering school, so he wasn't too happy because he still had to pay back the loan. So that, and now I've like dropped out of engineering school. But then, so that was, it was a tough relationship with my dad too at that point. And you can imagine those conversations and happening, and he felt I was completely a total, total loser, right? But then I went in for, I changed my line. I went in for business administration or commerce, and interestingly, I just did. I mean, it just like opened up. I finally found my pace, and I did exceedingly well. I was like, I felt that it just kind of, one failure in one area doesn't mean that you're a failure in everything. And I did really well. I was in the top 10% of the class, graduated really well, and then went for my MBA in India too, and then graduated in the top 10%. So it's been like the failures have helped define my career path also, right? And there have been failures in my, that's why I keep telling people it's not a straight line. It's sometimes when you think you failed in one thing, it turns out to be a really good thing, and you end up even better than what you failed at.
Yep.
So there's that piece, right? Which is, failures define me. And then I come getting into my MS program in quantitative marketing at Temple. I knew that I wanted a marketing degree, but I also wanted on the quantitative side. So I kind of, it's been a searching process, right? I knew more or less I needed something quant because I liked numbers. It's just that I've also analyzed why I don't do well in math. It's because when I was in school in India, like I need to understand things at the foundational level really well, and then I can build on. And if I don't understand that, it's very difficult for me to build on concepts. And in school in India, they move through concepts really fast, and with me, I need to take my own pace, right? So it's not that I can't do it. It's just that I need to pace. I need to pace my learning, and I need to understand foundations. And once I understand that, then I can pretty much I can learn things really well.
Okay.
But I had that opportunity in the US to actually do that.
Yeah. So Ashish, when I look at your career, you started your first job with Comcast, then moved to Lenovo, and then Oppenheimer, and now LPL. And you did make this point about searching, and is that search over? Because I do see last two careers have been in the financial industry. Uh, is that what you feel, that this is the space you want to be in? Because first being telecom, second being technology, and now being financial. Uh, do you feel your search is over in terms of the industry? Go ahead.
For a certain part, I do actually, and I'll for a certain part I do, and I'll tell you why also, because joke about this. I was like, I worked in the cable industry, cable and telecom, the MSO as they call it, multi-service organization. That's the technical term for it's an MSO kind of industry. And it was great experience. Comcast was a fantastic learning ground for me. That's where I kind of dug my teeth in and kind of into data analytics. So good. Just I had the opportunity to meet some managers who really transformed my career. I mean, I'm still in touch with them, but they were like, they were the reason. Like I'm grateful for that opportunity to have actually met some people that have transformed my career, and that was at Comcast. But that said, I joke about this. It's like, hey, it's good to be the cable guy. You know how cable works. And when I was at Lenovo, it's the PC guy. Okay, you know how PCs work. But then, and I mean, no disrespect, but it just I realized it's like, but working in the financial services industry, these are lessons that you can apply to your own personal life, like managing your finances better, being more, because growing up, I didn't feel I had a good financial education. You learn everything. Our education system, you'll learn about history and geography and, all that, but no one gives you a financial education. And coming into this industry, I thought I got a financial education about how that can impact my personal life, that can impact my personal portfolio and make a meaningful change to me as an individual. So with that lens, it's good that I know how cable works. That's great. But really, how much of an impact does it have on your personal life per se, or even, laptops and computers? How much does that really have an impact? But talking about managing your portfolio, and especially now when times are choppy, and understanding investments and how you, and I think that has been transformative for me, because this industry has not only its work, but it's work that I can apply to my own personal life and kind of make adjustments and evaluate, learn from work and then apply it, to your own portfolio, right? So that's why I feel it has, it's not just work, it's also, it has a personal aspect to it, right? So I feel that, yeah, this is the right industry for me now.
Okay. And if you look at that 15 years and you did quant in marketing, the first job, even for me, it was almost like I was still trying to understand what I really want to do. But I kind of started getting certain interest, and the second job helped me get my passion and my interest firmed, and saying, okay, this is probably the industry or the focus area I want to be in. And then the last two jobs have been just living that passion. So between all the four jobs, there's been one common thread, even for you, is data, quant, analytics, and now AI. Do you see that as a single thread between the four, which you've doubled down on the passions front?
Yeah, so passion is an interesting conversation, right? People have this, this is my view on passion and finding passion in your job. People say, oh, find a job that you're passionate about, and you'll do really well, and work will be play and all of that. And I think that's, I think that's bad advice, and this is my opinion. I think that's bad advice to say, find your passion, or find, go work in a field that you're passionate about. And what I've realized increasingly through my career is that a lot of people don't know what their passion is, right? What I have felt is more helpful is focus on it's like, this is the way I describe it. It's like watching Netflix, right? You're browsing through Netflix and you don't know what show to watch, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll watch this show. And then you kind of go in there and you're like, whoa, this show is really exciting. And you get really immersed into it, right? So I would say pick something that you're good at, that you're relatively good at, and then go deep. And as you get success, and as you get, it'll be hard, right? But as you get success, you get also confidence, and confidence builds passion, right? So as soon as you start to get confident and you feel, hey, this is actually, not bad, this is great, that confidence builds passion. So I wouldn't say follow your passion per se. I would say follow things that you feel you're good at, and then get the wins and the success to build confidence, get the confidence and the success, and then automatically you actually become passionate about it. So the advice of, what's your passion? People ask you, and, you should go work in the past. I think that's a wrong framing of the question. The question is, what do you think what are you probably good at? And then try to find alignment out there and build on that with small, and then over time you get confidence, and confidence leads to passion. But that's my approach.
So in the last 15 years, have you found what you're good at and really good at?
I would, yes and no, because it's ever evolving and it's ever changing. But yes, I have found what I'm really good at. I think this whole like data science analytics landscape. I'm not a data scientist, and I don't claim to be one. And on the analytics side, I feel that I've I'm this in between layer, this connective glue. I think I'm realizing more and more that is, that's my calling. It is to be the connective glue between the quant and the business, and bringing in the soft skills to kind of manage that for teams, right? And it's like the X factor.
Okay.
I'm really good at taking, like coming up with the creative sides of the left brain, right brain, being analytical, but also being creative, and someone that can go between both. Um, that I'm realizing more and more is a skill that's that I'm good at, and I'm going to focus more on that. The ability to take something which is create an abstract concept and then bring it to life through data analytics. So I'm still working on it, but that's where I feel that my passion is, and that's where I'm evolving as an individual.
You've changed cities. At least I know that you've changed at least 3 cities now from a job perspective.
Uh-huh.
And you've also moved countries many miles away. So how has family or friends really shaped your career? If you kind of look back and continue to see how is that immediate circle of influences your decision on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question, because especially I highly recommend people should go and live in different places, and if you have the opportunity in life, go and live in like different countries, right? Because when you if hypothetically, if I stayed back in India, I would not have. First of all, I mean, I may have had opportunities in India, I would have, but I would not have stretched myself, right? And growth occurs when you're uncomfortable. Growth doesn't occur when you're comfortable. It's like going to the gym and lifting heavier weights. It's a process of tear down, micro tears, and then you build up even stronger, right? But that's where growth occurs. And coming to Philadelphia, living in different places, working it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard, but now I can walk into it. But it's also given me the confidence to walk into any situation and be, relatively okay. That hey, I've got this, and I'm going to be. It's under control, right? But it builds that confidence again. And I highly recommend people travel. People should live in different countries. It gives you perspective. Perspective is important, and that's something which that's been a big learning for me. More than just the education. This is just just something in life. And then in terms of family, I feel I've been I have a 4.5-year-old now, and things have changed from the early days where it was all about just me and Ashish, and doing I would work 11 p.m. at night and all of that. But now it's like after my daughter was born in 2015, helped me balance things out more, and it's helped me grow in a different area. It's made me be actually a better manager at work also, because empathy and the EQ of just understanding situations better has also helped me grow, right? So just that going through the process of being a parent is helps you actually be helps you be a better leader and manager at work, right? Because then you're not just leading from IQ, you're leading from EQ too. It has purpose for me now. Life has purpose, because from a family perspective, my wife, as I always said, my wife gives me strength, and my daughter gives me purpose. Because I can only do the things I do. Like I travel a lot, and I go to and my wife has been there backing me 100% of the way, right? And then for my daughter, it's like the purpose, it's like just to see her grow up and go through the different life stages is really interesting, but it's exciting.
That was an amazing statement from Ashish. Let us listen to it once more.
Because then you're not just leading from IQ, you're leading from EQ too. And it has purpose for me now. Life has purpose, because from a family perspective, my wife, as I always said, my wife gives me strength, and my daughter gives me purpose. Because I can only do the things I do. Like, I travel a lot, and I go to, and and my wife has been, there, backing me 100% of the way, right? So, and then for my daughter, it's like the purpose, it's like, just to see her grow up and, go through the different life stages is really interesting, but it's exciting.
Well said, sir. So, you've you've just touching 40 this year now, but however, you've had a glorious 15 years. Let's say if I have to challenge you and say that, Ashish, can you do this in 7? Would you be able to do it? And or your choice can be, no, I will still live it through and do it again in 15 if I have to.
I would still live it in 15, because so 7 would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a few things that I wish I had done earlier. I thought about, like, if I had to do something better earlier, what would it be? And I really wish in 2009 I knew about passive investing and the S&P 500. And I wish that I had put my money in the S&P 500, in an S&P 500 ETF. And, okay, looking back, I was like, hey, that, it's the S&P 500, has, it's been a great ride. I mean, yeah, but I didn't have that type of financial education. So, whatever, that's looking back. But in terms of that aside, I think every opportunity has molded me has given me a unique perspective on life. And the 15 years, I wouldn't short circuit it, because the learnings have been, it's been a roller coaster, right? The highs and the lows, but you cannot appreciate the highs if you don't have the lows. So and the lows give you the perspective, so that when you do have the highs, it's great, right? So, and it's all relative, and I wouldn't trade that. Like, if I had to go back in time and had a time machine, yeah, I would have made better investment decisions. But that aside, from a life perspective, I think the journey of the highs and lows have been just, phenomenal, and that I would not short circuit.
And you did talk about your National Geography book to dial-up internet, and now technology all over and around us. And in the data and analytics space, technology is just unavoidable.
And rotary dial telephone. And rotary dial telephone.
Oh yes,
that's
rotary dial. Yes, that's
yeah.
Before the dial-up. Yes, definitely. So how's technology today either influencing your decisions or helping you in your career? And with everything going on right now, I think there's too much of information and misinformation. Somewhere it is protecting all of us also. So what do you think technology has played a role and continues to play a role in your career?
I think technology is, it's undeniable. Technology has a massive impact on our lives, and it will continue to do so. But coming from a data analytics perspective, on the lens, and I've been having conversations about, what does leadership in data analytics look like, and applying just that lens on that question. More so, and more than anything, we focus on a lot of, in our industry, we focus on a lot of tech, like, this new whiz bang, I get pitched so much with all these companies with, everyone's trying to build a better mousetrap. They're all product focused. And what's really lacking is the human element in it. And for analytics leadership, I'm realizing increasingly more and more, it's not about the EQ or the hard skills. It's the soft skills that are going to matter. It is leadership, teamwork. It's having the empathy, because the empathy goes into the data models that you actually design, right? And when you get to analytical and you don't apply empathy, then you get issues with ethical AI, right? So when, with the emergence of ethical AI, empathy is going to be a big a big component, and no one, people have started to talk about it, but just because you can, that doesn't mean you should. And there's going to be a lot more those judgment calls, which there is no Coursera or
Udemy.
a
Yep.
university that's going to teach you that. Udemy, and so that's the ability to make those ethical calls or judgment calls on because if you just go with the quantitative aspect, we had, for example, Amazon. There was this example that Amazon was using an AI bot for recruiting, and the AI bot was learning data because people don't realize that to train AI you need historical data, and the historical data was flawed. So naturally the outputs, and the AI bot began discriminating as to who they hire, right? And Amazon had to shut that down. And there's multiple, Goldman and Apple came out with a credit card, and they had, they would, they it was something that they were not able to provide, credit cards for women, and it's just a whole bunch of things, right? But just because you can, that doesn't mean you should. And the ability to apply an ethical lens to analytics is not something that Udemy or Coursera, you can just take a course and you're like, oh, there's no Python for that. But those are emerging skills that I mean to say there's no Python code for that. Those are, I feel increasingly are going to become more important because technology will recede in the background. And that's that's as technology recedes, as technology becomes commonplace and recedes into the background, those types of skills are going to be more relevant in the industry, and those are going to be highly valued in terms of leadership and the ability to lead in a data analytics realm. So.
Cool. Going back to work, and you did kind of recite, you've had highs and lows in your career. Were there any memorable moments or a moment which you still remember and that has shaped your career?
There are actually, there's too many to list, but I think the one of the I'll one of the memorable moments of my life was the implementation of, I still remember, was the implementation for Comcast. This was at Comcast, Comcast.com. We were on Hitbox, HBX, back in the day, which was the web analytics solution. But of course, Hitbox got acquired by Omniture. Omniture got acquired by Adobe. But at that point in time, we were on So Comcast.com was on Hitbox, and we were out of the Hitbox HBX contract, and we were moving to Omniture, and I knew nothing about Omniture. I was green behind the ears, and I had no idea what Omniture was. I didn't know how to implement it, and then my manager comes to me, and my manager at that time had left, so I was the only person holding the bag there. With another coworker of mine, both of us holding the bag. We were like junior analysts, and they were like, "Well, you need to get this done, and pretty much over the weekend, this needs to be implemented because we're no longer we're deprecating HBX, and we're going to get onto Omniture." And we signed a deal with Omniture, and blah blah blah. And my manager had just left, so it was kind of we were up, we were up the wrong side of the creek. I still remember of not knowing anything, of being completely, thinking I'm going to get fired and lose my job. My coworker and I, we spent the whole weekend, and we had about 100 things. We had to self-teach. We had to read about stuff, and just over the weekend cram all this information up, and then come in on Monday morning, and we said, guys, just do, there were hundreds of requests for our engineering team to go implement. And the engineering team was like, we're not going to do this. This is ridiculous. We can't do this in a short amount of time. And then on Monday morning, we came back and said, guys, you don't do 100 things, just do these 7 items. And we gave them a list of 7 things. And that has been such, and they implemented it because they were not going to implement 100 items. 7 went into the development queue, and they got implemented, and that successfully transitioned we moved from Hitbox to HBX to Omniture, And without, I look back and I wonder, it's like, I don't know how we pulled that off, but that was a project which I honestly thought I was going to lose my job. And there was a lot of writing on it. Actually, it goes into much more details for another time, but there was money, there was time crunch, there was all these things. And if it wasn't for teamwork and my coworker and I just like sequestering ourselves in a cafe. I still remember in Philadelphia, and just like we just worked right through the weekend, but we got it done. And those are the moments of in your life where you're like, you pulled that off. That was awesome, But in the moment, it's painful. But when you come on the other side of it, you're like, wow, that was just phenomenal. And you feel good in your life, that build confidence, right? So you can walk into a situation and you can do it. So that's one, and there are other events in my life. So Lenovo, I got it was 2017. I got laid off, and getting laid off from a company is extremely, especially when you have a family, right? It's very fearful, right? Because of the layoffs, and you're like, what am I going to do? And but the thing was that when you go through that whole layoff thing, right, it makes you a stronger person. It actually gives you resiliency. And all of the things I've done in my life has actually, I realized it's built resiliency for when there is an event, as I spoke about engineering, right? Dropping out of engineering school, and then you jump into something and you do even better, right? So the same narrative has played out in my life too. That was good. That was a great event because it set the trajectory for me in a completely different direction, and it allowed me to reset. And it was explosive growth after that. It just went. I mean, I look back and I'm like, wow, if that didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. And I'm grateful for that opportunity that happened at the time, because it kind of allowed me to kind of dig deep and then get back on the saddle, and then it turned out even better than I would have wildly expected, right? But looking back now, it seems like you can join the dots, but I couldn't at that point in time when I was in that situation. I just had to trust and hope, and and I'm grateful for a couple of things. I'm grateful. I've also learned the meaning of the word grateful really, really well, is because one is living in the United States of America. I mean, and I know this might sound patronizing, but I fundamentally believe that this is a land of opportunity, and I'm grateful for what this country has provided me with an opportunity. It's just I would not have had this opportunity elsewhere. I just feel that, but that's my opinion. It's a land of people are willing to take chances on you, and they're willing to believe in you, and that's so I'm grateful for that opportunity. Grateful to be in the United States. Two is grateful for family. Very grateful for family. That's where my wife being just solid rock ballast and telling me, hey, nope, you can do it. You can go ahead. That's and then luck, right? There's also a certain element of luck in there, which but being at the right place at the right time, there's a little bit of luck also. So all of those factors, when they come together, you're like, yeah, you've it's not, at the time you might think it's bleak, but then you come out on the other side and you're like, wow, that was a great ride, right? So you go through life with these highs and lows, right? But then you come out on the other side on the high, and you're like, wow, this feels great because you've been through the low, right? So that's just my perspective on on how things have transpired.
No, and those lows actually make you much more stronger and appreciate things which are, you often don't recognize them. So no, thanks for sharing that critical moment. I'm sure it was a formidable one as you look back. We are almost on top of the hour, but you do mentor and you coach a lot of folks, and you do have a large team, and you do run a global team. So from all these experiences, what kind of feedback or what kind of perspectives would you want to share with your teams or with anybody who would come to you and say, Ashish, I'm going through this, or, I'm not able to carve my path? What will be your key message to them?
Yeah, so there is no right or wrong answer. I'm just like, this is I've had the opportunity to also mentor interns and people early on in their careers, and I was like, I reflect back on my time, and I wasn't the smartest person in the room, but I had the confidence to know that I can, and I always played the long game, right? So impatience is very, is something that a lot of people have, and they're very impatient. With me, it's about playing the long game. Are you in it for the long game? And if you have a little bit of patience and you're at it, right? It's not to outwit, it is to outlast. And that comes with resiliency and the ability to kind of persevere into and stay on that path, right? It gets like it's not hitting the home run. It's about being a slugger, getting those ones and twos in, and if you can do that consistently, despite everything that's happening, I think success to me is about that grit. So there's the grit. I call it the 3 Gs: grit, gratitude, and grace. Grit is because the grit to like just be at it, be gritty, and just like keep at it, though it may, life may like jerk you around up and down. But if you have grit, you will be successful. And gratitude to recognize what you've been, given and the opportunities you have. And it's very important. Like gratitude is very important because that humbles you in terms of, when you have those highs, you know that you wouldn't be there if it wasn't for those lows. So that's gratitude. And then the grace to kind of help people along that that have helped you kind of be there, right? So I'm still working on the grace part, like it's the giving and all of that stuff. I have room to work on myself too, but that's what I would, that's what I train people for. I mean, kind of provide them that point of view. It's like play the long game. It's patience is very important, and resiliency and grit is a quality that no one can teach you in school. Those are like, doesn't matter what you do in life, but if you have those qualities, I think that's a good recipe for success in my opinion.
Great parting thoughts, Ashish. It was great having a conversation with you. Thanks for taking time out on a Friday. Really appreciate that. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Anis. It's been great. Really appreciate you having me on your show, and love to come back again sometime soon. But look forward to having a more detailed conversation, maybe on some other topic in the future. But thank you. Really appreciate it. Have a good one now.
Take care.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please, you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.